Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the conclusion of the weekly comic book roundup. And having gone over this week's Marvel books so far, time to move on to the distinguished competition, DC. Kicking things off with Dark Knight's Death Metal, Multiverse's End. Multiverse's End deals with the Green Lantern, the mission assigned to the Green Lanterns by Wonder Woman back in Death Metal number 3. In fact, that seems to be the shtick with this month's Death Metal one-shots, is each one deals with an aspect of the plan, and they're all happening at once. So, we begin on Earth 3. Perpetua's tower is doing its thing. People are being stuck to it. And Owlman of the Crime Syndicate is forcing Green Lantern John Stewart to watch. And basically explaining, giving us the rundown. The tuning forks, so Perpetua's tuning forks are on specific Earths within the multiverse. Earth 3, Earth X, Earth 29, Earth 43, and Earth 50. And the Green Lantern led strike teams to each of these worlds to take down the tuning forks. It appears that the Superman and Wonder Woman that went with John are holding their own against Ultraman and Superwoman. And turns out that what it really comes down to is Owlman's kind of jealous of the fact that, well, he's no longer the darkest reflection of Batman in the multiverse. Amusing meta commentary, actually. I mean, I can be completely honest. But Owlman is willing to switch sides and work with John, but he needs assurances. On Earth 10, Earth X, Guy Gardner, Captain Carrot, Kid Flash are doing what they can to save the world from the Ubermen, or Uberman. I don't remember what they're called, but as I recall, that version of Superman is called Uberman or Ubermensch. On Earth 29. Hal's dealing with the Bizarros. Let me see. We did have that listing of the Earths. On Earth 43, the Earth from Batman Red Rain, Kyle Rayner has basically created an artificial sun to keep the vampires at bay. And on Earth 50, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz have stopped the Justice Lords. But Guy can't get through John. So John has... cutting back to Earth 3, we find out just what assurances Owlman wants. He wants John's help in helping him understand. So John tells him, tells him a story. There was a source And from the source, the raw materials of the multiverse were pulled together by an unseen hand. The source sent Perpetua to take these raw materials and shape them into a functioning multiverse. And she created her children, the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger, to manage different aspects of her new reality. And she fulfilled her duties and was meant to die to allow her energies to return to the source, but she refused. She began to experiment on the mortals at the center of her new multiverse, transforming them into deadly apex predators. The plan being to build an army to head off anything the source might send to force her to give up her life and her control of her reality. But her children betrayed her, sending a signal out into the greater omniverse to let her superiors know that she was exceeding her function. And so she was imprisoned within the source wall. But she was able to but there's only one way to get out. A crisis needed to happen. And so first she engineered all the crises. She whispered into the mind of the Anti-Monitor, set him on the path that will reshape all of existence. Back on Earth X, Guy and his team have taken down the tuning fork and has rescued everyone attached to it. And Captain Carrot has a bit of a meltdown. Because it turns out when he got found by when he got saved, from the looks of things, almost all the other heroes on his world had died. But he has a little breakdown and events to Guy about what's happened. When Kid Flash shows up and explains something's wrong. Then Perpetua shows up, and well, she sends in an army of Rainbow Batmen. Most of them are lanterns. Also, we've got Bat Baby from Legends of the Dark Knights. And the various lanterns are taking on the Rainbow Batman Corps. But yeah, so the first crisis happened. Multiverse was collapsed into a single reality. Stabilized for a while. But that was the first crack in the source wall. Perpetua then was able to whisper out through the multiverse with the ears of the powerful. Perpetua was responsible for convincing Parallax Parallax coming up with his plan to take over Hal Jordan. Then Alexander Luthor's plan. Then Darkseid's plan. Then Barbados' plan. Until finally she was freed. And then John also tells Owlman he's not the first Owlman. There have been others that have been dealt with over the years. The rest of the Lanterns are dealing with the Rainbow Batman Corps. There's a thumb drive though that tells all the information about the previous Owlmans to Owlman. First one died during the first crisis. The second one died during Infinite Crisis. The third Owlman was born with the New 52 and was killed by Dr. Manhattan. And so Owlman says, no matter what, there will always be an Owlman. So, yeah, okay, he's down. He'll help John. And so Owlman turns on Ultraman and Superwoman. John prevents the Superman and Wonder Woman he brought from going after her. They're trying to stop Owlman, but Owlman has set explosives around the tuning fork anyway, so... But Owlman tells baby Batman that bats aren't welcome on Earth 3. And then he sets off the explosives, destroying the tuning fork and taking baby Bat with him. And the tuning forks fall. But they all, basically the Lanterns all, come together and say, okay, yeah, we pulled this one off somehow. And the carrier takes them home. That's where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book, Legion of Superheroes number 9. Where we left off, the Legion was about to be tried, very publicly, I might add. So we begin with, the opening is from Shadowlass, linked to her past, and talk about the basically what's happened. But yeah, she's going to be speaking on behalf of the Legion in their trial. And so we get various audition tapes like Dawnstar, who basically wanted to make sure that that the Legion was as autonomous as possible from the United Planets. Bouncing Boy, who apparently wrote his doctorate on an argument against the United Planets. Monster Boy, Block makes a rather public protest against the Madam President. We see Wildfire's audition, then Timberwolf's, which these Timberwolf and Wildfire are mainly done to highlight the good side, are brought up by Shadowlass to kind of bring up the good side. Same with Invisible Kid. Well, Invisible Kid testifies, though he can't be seen. But then Ultra Boy's father, from Rimbor, shows up with Ultra Boy in chains, and well, yeah, things get bad. 17 seconds later, well, 5 seconds later, Mon-El pummels the crap out of General Krav, and then gets thrown out of the building. Dream Girl then explains that there is a great darkness coming. She has seen it in her dreams. And that General Krav is aware of this great darkness. Triplicate Girl is trying to decide what to do as well, but she's of three minds on the subject. Dr. Fate backs up Dreamgirl's claims about the Great Darkness, and also adds that in the brief time Legion has existed, things have gotten, at least the balance has been tilted slightly more towards order than chaos. We then just did a bit about the White Witch, who also who's also somewhat aware of this darkness, and it turns out is the daughter of Mordred the Mystic. Also, or Mordred the Magician, aka the Mordred the Mad, aka Mordred the Merciless, so on and so forth. Names and titles, and yeah. But yeah. President Brand then explains that she set up the trial herself to, prove, because she had faith that the Legion would prove themselves to be in the right, and yeah. I don't know, sounds like a smarmy politician's ploy, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it's kind of unless she's exhausted from everything, and unless the Great Darkness is the foyer, she would like to end the proceeding and work on what was discovered. The trial is concluded, and she then, as she dismisses the Legion, saying, "Long live the Legion." Later, as the Legion head back to Earth, Saturn Girl and Superboy have a brief tryst, which involves apparently his attraction to her is pretty obvious, and well, Saturn Girl being a telepath, well, yeah, she picks up on it, and the two of them kiss in space, and that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to something we'll hold over from at least last week, if not honestly 2 weeks ago. Detective Comics number 1027. This is a bit of a big one. As you can see, it's pretty much a trade all in and of itself. So the idea was kind of to honor Batman first appeared in Detective Comics number 27. So, because DC Comics doesn't know how to math right, they hyped this as being 1,000 issues later, and well, more than a few people online did point out, no, the 1,000th issue since Batman appeared would have been 1026, but this was already planned, so yeah, they can go back on. So we begin Peter Tomasi and Brad Walker blowback. Batman awakes underwater, cameras on him. Thinks about, reflects on the various villains he's dealt with, the traps, how he deals with them all, before eventually managing to escape by seemingly inducing death. Next up, we've got The Masterclass by Brian Bendis and David Marquez. Robin, Damian Wayne, stumbles upon a body on top of a building. And then Nightwing finds the same body and Robin. Then Batgirl. Then Red Robin, spoiler. Then Red Hood. And then the man himself shows up. And they begin, looking over everything. They do eventually discover that Killer Croc was kind of involved, but not entirely, and as well as the victim, Detective Dungeon of the GCPD, as well as his ex. Next up, we get I don't recall what the title on this one was. Many Happy Returns by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. Um, at one point in year one, month 11 of year one, it was the second time Batman ever dealt with the Joker. There was a cop trussed up by the Joker with a little sash on that said "Happy Birthday." From then on, once a month, he kept on receiving, or every month, Joker continually sends Batman a birthday present. Sometimes it's a reason for the two of them to run into each other. Sometimes it's just a pick. Sometimes it's something innocuous. So it's different each time. Malevolent or mischievous, violent and vicious, or harmless and bizarre. Never once has it been on Bruce's actual birthday. It also gets brought up that sometimes it's almost come to a failure. It's almost not happened. And we also get an idea of just how often or how long Bruce has been operating as Batman. The furthest up we get is year 22. So next up we get Rookie by Greg Rucka and Eduardo Risso, focusing on a young Gothamite who ends up going through the police academy, gets a badge, and it's explained that, in all honesty, none of the cops in Gotham are protect and serve. The cops in Gotham are the biggest gang in the city. But apparently Gordon spoke at graduation, and the word really stuck with this particular rookie. And she's well aware that a lot of her fellow cops are on the take. Many of them many of them having betrayed their oath before they even taken it. And she's tried to be honest. Got bitched at by a lieutenant. Had a dead rat hung in her locker once upon a time. On another occasion, looks like she basically prevented the framing of someone by the arrival of Montoya and Crispus Allen. However, it also helped that somebody else was watching too. Batman. After that, Gordon invites her to the Major Crimes Unit. An encounter Batman watches from the shadows with a smile. Next up, we've got Ghost Story by James Tynion IV. Basically, it involves an early adventure of Batman and Robin and Deadman, who spends most of the story possessing Batman. But they're up against a guy called himself the Spectre Collector. Through some arcane dark science, he's figured out a way to make physical contact with the spirits of the dead. As long as a ghost is in his mechanical hands, he can hurt them and do worse. He's been eating them. Eating all the spirits he can catch. He thinks he's growing more powerful with each and every one, but that's because he's crazy. Truth is, he's taking all these poor spirits who haven't found their way their final spiritual resting place and destroying them. So, but yeah, Batman and Deadman managed to take care of him, disarm him, and Deadman asks if Bruce wants to know if his parents are out there, if they're watching. Batman simply says he already knows. And then thanks, Boston. Next up, we've got 4 by Kelly Sue DeConnick and John Romita Jr. Bruce Wayne arrives at East Lake Harbor Private Resort in the middle of a rainstorm. He's been invited there in the middle of the night. You do get to see a little bit of Bruce Wayne's morning routine, as well as his evening routine. But the man who invited Bruce Wayne to go golfing, well, apparently he wants to buy a piece of property from Bruce. And, well, an offer's been made and Bruce turned it down. Turns out, though, Batman has managed to find out that a precinct, virtually the entire third shift of a precinct, is on the take. And so the man that Bruce is golfing with continues to talk to him, explaining that, he's got ways to make Bruce's life difficult. Apparently he owns the city council, bought and paid for. Cops, he's got an entire precinct in his pocket. And, well, turns out Bruce is wearing a wire and Jim Gordon's listening. And Batman thinks that, or Bruce thinks maybe he will take up golf. Next up, we've got Odyssey by Marv Wolfman. So, in 1937, there was a ship known as the Odyssey. It was 7 hours west of the Scottish coast, and Patrick Wayne was aboard it with a plane. Various forms of art were hidden aboard, but Wayne had gotten a call, or had learned that his wife had given birth to their first child, a boy, Thomas, and so Patrick got on his plane, flew off. Later that evening, though, the plane would reappear and apparently crash on the deck, and the ship would sink. This tale is being recounted by Bruce on a podcast to Roy Raymond, who is the grandson of Ronnie Raymond, I think it was also Roy Raymond, actually. Who almost made Bruce Wayne want to be a detective. But they may have found where the Odyssey sank. Turns out that the Odyssey was carrying pieces of art from Jewish families in the lead up to World War II, basically so that Hitler couldn't sell them on the black market. But as everyone's getting ready to go underwater and find the derelict, well, Bruce claims to have possibly taken ill, and so he'll stay behind. And he starts investigating, and however, one of the divers is not part of the regular team, and he's trying to make way with the loot himself. Only to run into Batman. Turns out Batman found one of the members of the podcast team tied up in its quarters. But yeah, it turns out that quite a bit more was... the Nazis had found the Odyssey, and they locked everyone in their quarters, and then sank the ship. And maybe they can find the art. Next up, we have Detective Number 26 by Grant Morrison. So, Detective 26 tells the story of a young Gothamite, who decided to become a private detective. But after a while, because there were about 20 different PIs in Gotham, he decided to go further and became a mystery man, the Silver Ghost. Everything perfectly planned out. And early on, as he was moving towards his first major case, the Batman showed up. And Silver Ghost was like, okay, yeah, no, never mind. And so upon seeing that, he's like, yeah, no, sorry, this guy pulled it off better than I did. Next up, we've got Legacy by Tom King and Walter Simonson, dedicated to the late Denny O'Neil. Basically, it focuses on Batman fighting Dr. Phosphorus and trying to pass along, basically trying to poison him. Next up, we get, Phosphorus is trying to poison Batman to, basically be able to potentially say, I'm the one who killed Batman. And, after Batman defeats him, Phosphorus asks, don't you want to know why I was doing this? And Batman simply says, no. This is followed up by... As Always by Scott Snyder and Ivan Reis. Begins with Batman and Gordon meeting a GCPD rooftop, and it's told from Gordon's perspective. Further explaining things like they do have a means of communicating other than just the bat signal. And talking about some of Gordon's perspective of some of the more outlandish adventures that Batman's been involved in. And talking to Batman during some of these, like, sounds like once during a fight on Apocalypse, once during a fight against the Anti-Monitor, on a fight with Brainiac, so on and so forth. But yeah. Next up, we've got one of the to be continued in stories. Generations Fractured. This is by Dan Jurgens. On Halloween night, Batman's dealing with various criminals that are dressed as classic monsters. We got a Frankenstein, we got a vampire, we got a mummy, we got a werewolf, and yeah, Batman. Even with the guy dressed as Frankenstein's monster having an exoskeleton, wearing an exoskeleton that enhances strength. Yeah, he's no big deal. And this is all being done by Calendar Man, who's trying to set fire to part of the Gotham Museum gallery donated by Thomas and Martha Wayne. However, something goes strange, and Batman's back at the museum in an older costume. And the year is now it's now the 1930s. As he leaves the museum, a light appears and Kamandi, the last boy, arrives. Apparently time is broken. Kamandi got a time machine from Booster Gold. And so Kamandi and Batman go forward to the future. This will apparently be continued in Generations Future State number 1. Next we have a story of the Joker War. A gift. Batman is holed up in one of the worst hotels in Gotham. Just want to take a quick respite from everything. We also have a couple of cops who are a break-in at Wayne Industries. There's a break-in near Wayne Industries, so Batman responds, as do the police. Something's being set off. Sadly, though, the chemicals being let loose, managed to injure and potentially kill the two responding or at least one of the responding officers. And everything it does relate to the Black Casebook. And Batman begins to think, as the story ends, maybe the Joker's onto something. Maybe there are no rules. And the sun in the sky is just a red herring. The past can't be undone, but we can change the future. Because it's all just memory. And that is where the issue ends. I should arrange getting a much larger bag than normal for this one because, well, yeah, it's practically a trade in and of itself. Which brings us to our next to last book of the week, Three Jokers, Book 2. Where we left off, the Joker had committed 3 separate crimes at seemingly the same time. There's no possible way one man could do such things. However, as Batman has come to realize, there's more than one Joker. Then him, Batgirl, and Jason Todd, the Red Hood, caught one of the Jokers. And while Batman went to investigate another call, the Joker that had been captured by the 3 of them managed to taunt Red Hood into killing him. So the issue begins. Joker seemingly arrives at a house in Gotham. Suburban family, mom and son, making him dinner, but it turns out to just be something he's fantasizing at their hideout. To be clear, that's the comedian. The one killed was the criminal, and the other one the one killed was the clown. The other one out there is the criminal. So Batman's dealing with the call from Gordon. Potentially, the Joker was seen at the house of a retired judge, but there are some Jokerized guard dogs there. Batman managed to knock them out. The judge was beaten to death with a humanitarian award, however. Then Batgirl shows up, and Batman asks where Red Hood is, and finds out that, yeah, Jason killed the Joker. The two of them discuss things, and just on the way, Bruce and Babs discuss a few things, namely that, Batman was kind of hoping that maybe Jason's return would end up turning out much the same way that Barbara's aftermath of Barbara's injury did. But Red Hood is out beating up Joker thugs and asking to get information, while Batman and Batgirl go to Blackgate Asylum. Apparently, the fingerprints on the humanitarian award were those of Joe Chill, the man who murdered the Waynes. Turns out, Chill is dying of cancer. And it's in the Blackgate Hospital wing. So there's no way he could have killed the judge, meaning his fingerprints were planted. Back with the Red Hood, he has discovered another part of the Joker's plot, pool chemicals. So, and he finds a pool filled with pool chemicals and bleached bodies. One of them isn't dead. In fact, presumably most of them aren't. But the surviving Joker's kidnapped Jason, tie him to a chair naked, and start talking to him. They paint a smile on the Red Hood mask, and he gets smacked around the crowbar a little bit. And they were maybe thinking that perhaps Jason could be the new third Joker. But no. Though they are still kind of maybe he'll surprise him. So Batman and Batgirl make it to the pool, and yeah, the people that were in the pool with the chemicals, they're very much not dead. And they're trying not to harm them, but it's hard when you're being swarmed like that. But as they continue on, they find Jason naked with the remains of his mask on his head. But Barbara offers to get him someplace safe. And Barbara has some harsh words for Bruce. Namely that Jason needs Bruce. But Bruce insists that Jason's safe. And they need to make sure that the rest of Gotham is too. But Jason comes to and does some exploring. Reads a book on chronic pain management that Babs has handy. When she comes back from patrolling, they talk a bit. And, in some way she does kind of sort of take Bruce's side, but, kind of, hey, it was different. You were dead. No one, The two, Jason and Babs, have a brief kiss, and then but she says they need to get back on the case. Meanwhile, Bruce is looking over some footage of Joker and looking over things such as missing criminals and missing clowns. Meanwhile, Joe Chill has been broken out of Blackgate. And the Joker is filming him, and it's time for him to confess why Joe Chill really killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. Which brings us to our final book of the week, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, Book 3. Where we left off. Oh boy. Oh. Harley was back in Gotham to handle some issues. And ran afoul of the Joker, of course. Yeah. And she broke into his vault and took all of his loot. Turns out, however, not only was it Joker's loot in the vault, but a whole bunch of other Gotham criminals. So, yeah. And it just so turns out that she wandered into Wayne Manor. So, the issue begins with Alfred repairing her beaver, Harley's beaver, and also making breakfast while talking with Bruce over the phone. Turns out that Harley's been raiding the wine cellar and very much enjoying Bruce Wayne's bed. And she has a moment of panic remembering something with her phone, but then remembers, oh yeah, her phone was out of juice, so yeah, never mind, it was just a dream. Though Alfred does tell her that he did plug her phone in. Turns out she gets a lot of messages for Ivy. And Harley's actually quite impressed with the job that Alfred did on the beaver, who tells Harley that she should marry Alfred because he likes the cut of Alfred's jib. But there's a few things that she's got some phone calls to make, so she would kind of appreciate if Alfred could help her print off a few things from the internet. And she explains what happened to him, and meanwhile, Montoya and Huntress have been looking into Depot Mortgage, and yeah, they're dirty, but it's really hard to find dirt on them. And then Montoya gets a call from Harley at the stable on off to the side of Bruce Wayne's the Wayne property. So of course, all over the news, she's giving all this stuff back, and well, yeah, the various criminals are the various inmates of Arkham Asylum are not too happy about this, and they proceed to beat the hell out of the Joker. But he does say, "Hey, look, I've got more cash stashed elsewhere. All right." So, 20 mil to whoever brings me Harley, alive or dead. And he's got a breakout plan. His new girlfriend, not Punchline, but a different one, has broken everyone out. They get to the hideout. And she announces she's got a van full of all-stars. The birds are watching DeFeo agents, not DeFeo, the DeFeo agency, but they're being watched as well. Then a mass text goes out into Gotham saying, $20 million reward on Harley, dead or alive. So, watching the DeFeo mortgage place is going to have to wait. After all, a lot of Gotham cops are on the take, and yeah, they're not going to pass up that money. Red Tool shows up, and yeah, some of the Harley been found by some of the hitmen. She borrows nail gun from Red Tool. Then the Riddler shows up, running over the hit woman. Takes a few nails to the shoulder and says, "Okay, I'll just let this one slide." Montoya, Harley, and Red Tool end up at the GCPD, and everyone else is there. Clayface, Freeze, Two-Face, Penguin. Yeah. Big fight breaks out. Mobsters show up. Yeah, Harley escapes in the birds show up as well. Harley escapes in the crazy, or all the craziness, and burns down the house of the owner of the DeFeo mortgage agency. Of course, he's now mortified that, my wife and kids were in there. And like, no, their wife and kids are at the neighbors down the street. And so with that, Harley decides to pay a visit to Ivy. Walks into the apartment and discovers that, well, Ivy's already has a company. Mr. J. Who's got Ivy hanging from the ceiling. And yeah. He's ready to kill her. And that is where the issue ends. That's it for this week's roundup, as always. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.